Hey, how's it going, guys? Steve here from Globital, and once again joined by my old mate Brent Spilkin out in Josie in Johannesburg, South Africa. Brent, nice to see you again, mate. How you doing?
You too. Well, and you. Good to see you. I think it's been about a year since we had our last
Yeah,
chat.
yeah, it's been a while. But a lot's changed. Hey? The world's changed. The whole digital industry's changed, I think. And there's new changes coming every day. How things going your side? You said you've been quite busy and life's good with that digital agency space.
Yeah, so I do a lot of agency, not just digital. I do PR, traditional design, the web, the whole lot. A lot of sort of software dev house as clients as well. But overall, not bad. I would say that the majority of my clients don't have, how to categorize this, don't have a sales problem. They've got a people problem
Yeah.
where they can't, especially locally in the South African context, specifically in Johannesburg, can't find quality talent at an affordable price. And if they do find them, it's very difficult to keep them. So the conversation the last sort of 6 or 8 months has been very much around employee value proposition, recruitment strategies, retention strategies, as opposed to how do we find work. That
Right.
doesn't seem to be the biggest problem.
Yeah, which is interesting because I think that is probably one of the most common frustrations that most digital agencies face is the people issue. I mean, obviously
Mm.
that's our space being that hey, you don't need to find those people. You can come to a white label partner like us. But what are you seeing from that perspective from the digital agencies that you work with in terms of those people thing? You said there's a bit of a trend there around bums in seats and things like that. What's your experience been over the last?
So So I can only really speak around the South African context predominantly. I've got clients scattered around the world, mostly South African expats, but the bulk of my business is still local. And what I'm seeing is that probably from a global perspective, there's definitely the economy shrinking, and the big corporates are consolidating and slowing down spend on pet projects and fun things. They're keeping it really, really on the
Right.
basics. But what's happened is that I think from a head office perspective, what's the sort of the mandate that's come down is, guys, don't add to your overhead, right? You cannot spend more money overhead. But the work still needs to be done. So what's happened now is that as opposed to putting agencies on retainers, which is overhead, what they've done is they've said to agencies, can you place people inside our business that we will manage? You can take a much smaller percentage markup on those people and basically just flow through, and we'll put it down as a cost of sales on a project or on a piece of work. So the structure of why they are engaging in a different fashion, I see a bit of that happening at the moment, and quite in quite big numbers. It's not like I need one person or two people. Like I need like 5, 10, 15 people at a time easily, especially in the digital software sort of space. I'm seeing a lot of that, and often for 6 months up to 18-month projects that the guys are running inside,
Wow.
but they don't want to employ full-time employees. So they're looking for agencies to go, do you have resources? Can we buy from you those resources on contract? And we'll manage them and make yourself your 15, 20% markup, whatever it looks like
Right.
on the people cost. So I'm
Right.
seeing a fair amount of that, which I haven't seen through agencies before, except for agencies that only do that, right? There are
Yeah.
those sort of placement
The
agencies.
recruitment agent.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
Kind of, but I'm seeing it now through some of the more traditional agencies as well, where the always on skills, the basic design, basic copy, PPC paid stuff, like those kind of always on. The guys are going, listen, we want to internalize that, but we can't employ people. Can you flow this through to us?
Right, right. And that's quite interesting, because I think it's an interesting space for an agency who's used to doing signing those retainers and actually being doing the project work as opposed to now having to pivot potentially and say, hey, we're now in a way turning ourselves into a recruitment agency. We're having to
Yeah.
rent out our staff in a way. What's your advice been to those agencies and how do you make that change?
Well, the biggest problem is generally the most often is the shave of margin, right? Where the
Right,
guys are making let's call it a 60, 70% gross profit
right,
before staff costs. Now they're making a 20% GP. They don't have the staff costs, but they have other overheads. So it erodes quite a lot of the margin. But in the same vein, what you find is that if they have those warm bodies, which are the right skill set, they can ramp up the volume quite substantially it's actually a very low touch business. So all of a sudden you are making a couple of thousand rands, on top of someone's salary, but it's a once-off sale, introduction, place, step away, bill once a month, right? So it's almost annuity to some degree. So it's a much easier business. It's not sexy. I think it's scalable to some degree. Difficult to sell. Not that you aren't an agency, but you're dependent on the people. And if you've got good skills, I think you can place them. That kind of bleeds into the next part of the conversation for me is that the similar model is happening on an international scale from South Africa, where very particular skills. So I'm looking at guys that have got, and maybe it's not digital agency, but it fits in that, is that if you're looking at guys that are the senior Salesforce engineers and implementation guys, there's only so many of those in the world, and there's only so few of those in South Africa, and those guys are sought globally, so that they can sell themselves in a rand rate at I think an exorbitant price in South African terms, but very affordable for East Coast and Europe.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing quite a lot of that where very highly skilled, particular kinds of skills are being poached all day long, and there's no ways the South Africans can maintain those people. So what you're seeing within agencies is that the really good people, even if there's enough work for them locally, realizing they can earn 2x, sometimes 3x their salary internationally, working from home, like they're literally being pulled out of the economy here.
Yeah.
In terms of the resource economy. So I think that there's a lot of that happening. And then there's the discussion we had last time, which was the sort of the high volume commodity work. So you want a couple of thousand banners for Google AdWords, or you need like a couple hundred landing pages, or basic WordPress, Shopify sites, that kind of stuff. Similarly, there's lots of skills here that can produce it, and it works very well, and especially works very well in the States because we get the brief first thing in the morning, we put in on 9 hours. West Coast picks up at 5 p.m. here, whatever the time difference is.
Yeah.
And the turnaround seems to be faster for them because we're working while they sleep.
Yeah.
So I think there's a fair amount of that happening as well.
Yeah. And those agencies that are having to experience this, I mean, as you say, you are speaking very much from a South African perspective, but I think that this relates also quite well to anybody who catches this kind of conversation, whether you're in America or the UK or whatever it is, because you are potentially looking at this conversation from a different perspective, going, hey, maybe there's an opportunity there for those really skilled South African resources at a reduced rate, at a really affordable rate that I can bring into my agency and maybe farm out, as you say, because if that trend is happening in South Africa, maybe it's happening in the UK and the US as well.
So there are definitely examples where not directly but indirectly I've heard stories where the Unilever UK agency, and I stand to correct, but I think they're called Greenleaf or Greenfields or something along those lines. I don't know them. There were quite a few South African expats working inside that agency, and now they're looking for resources. And the South Africans within that agency go, well, I know and trust South Africans. I understand the language. I understand their abilities. It's not really outsourcing. What are they calling it? Near sourcing. It's near sourcing, which I really like because it's familiar, right?
Yes.
Near as in familiarity. And they are now poaching guys to be employed by the UK agency to do the UK work. And at the moment, I mean, I stand to be corrected, but today, the pound was 24 to the 1. Like we're cheap. We've always been cheap, but now we're exceptionally cheap. So I think that the South African guys can make substantially better margin and still be highly competitive on the European front now. So I think that's happening, and I think it's working both ways. I've seen examples of a Cape Town agency. Their entire sales strategy is find expats working inside agencies in the UK and LinkedIn request them and sell to those people, and that seems to be working quite well for them.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess, I mean, that's as I say, that's why we're in that space completely. Is we offer that to agencies directly because of that whole reason, like that affordable resources in first world, in third world countries or in lower income countries that speak the language, and that's our whole business model, is because of that exact reason. So it's like we recognize that with agencies, and I suppose this is what the attraction for a lot of agencies is. It's that reduced. You don't have to bring in those salary. You don't have to take on those salary costs. You don't necessarily have to bring on a very expensive resource. You can rely on an outsourced partner. But this near sourcing thing sounds interesting. It's an interesting trend. That's cool. So and the agencies that are, I mean, in your opinion, like what are the agencies? What should they be considering if this is something that they're looking at, if they are losing out and they are getting those questions from their clients saying, hey, listen, we actually don't want to pay you as an agency. We'd rather you pay someone in our business. What kind of conversations are you advising them on in that regard?
So I think it comes back to the business strategy and often the business owner and what their appetite looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because what you may find is that some guys are hungry for growth and margin, and that doesn't suit them, that model. Some guys are reaching maturity and are bored of their business and are at a different stage, and this might suit them, right? So I think it does depend very much on the personality that I'm speaking to, as opposed to a generic, one sort of sweeping answer.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I am suggesting to all my clients here that I have the ability to sell internationally is figure out what your international sales strategy looks like, because the obvious difference in pricing, the fact that there are so many South Africans are living in all these countries around the world, and most businesses have had some level of exposure to South Africans within their local community. So there's like a little bit of familiarity to it. Oh. And I'm seeing it work, and I'm seeing it work in the most obvious ways, is that guys are turning on very simple Google AdWords campaigns in the secondary cities. So like the joke is you don't go after, London, New York, Hong Kong, but you go after, Birmingham, Colorado, right, and, somewhere else, right? Yeah. So substantial cities in the South African context, but not the highly competitive stuff. And they're getting hits and they're getting inquiries and they slowly are converting sales. So things like Google, the typical sort of email outreach, a lot of LinkedIn and automated LinkedIn outreach stuff is happening, and the guys are using that account-based management systems. Either they built it themselves, doing it manually, or stealing from the Russians and their software and applying it. But whatever that looks like, the advice is try and put your people into the international arena for sure.
Got you. And I mean, with that, speaking of that, I mean, that's quite interesting because you mentioned quite a few tactics over there. And I agree with you. I think I've started to see, at least just, generally being online and just seeing, speaking to a lot of agencies, that there is a move a little bit away from the broadest perspective of just global SEO towards more of a niche, targeted some other kinds of tactics, like you've said there, specifically focusing on neighborhoods, specifically focusing on very, very niche, very targeted kinds of campaigns, because it's getting harder and harder to get those results for your clients if you're an agency. If you're going general, if you're going just, hey, SEO, specifically in your market, do you find that from an agency perspective, the guys that you speak to, that things have gotten a lot more competitive and that they are starting to look at those sort of?
So I think we're about to see the beginning of the end of what we've known as digital advertising. So I think what's happened is that it went from Google AdWords to social, to paid social, to influencer on social. Like the content piece. But now I think what's happened is that the market at large has matured enough to go, that's a paid for piece of content. That's an influencer that's getting paid. So we can, without the obvious, here's an ad, we can smell the advertising or the fact that we're being solicited somehow, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's happened now is that the younger generation are absolutely tired of growing up with this in their face. Every third post is a bloody ad. And what I'm seeing now, and it comes through even in the likes of like the HubSpots, is that the funnel mentality of produce content, get details, push them through a funnel, and then convert them to a sale or a meeting with B2B, whatever that methodology is dying, and it's dying quite quickly. And the net result is go build community, right? Yeah. And community means online community, physical community, the combination of very mass niche community highly engaged, still using the likes of influencer and still trying to create first-party data so you can own this community. But I think with the likes of the GA4s coming on shortly, the impact of that, and I know what that looks like. People seem to be confident about it, like it won't be such a big impact. Who knows?
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing is that even the larger brands in South Africa are going, let's rally around a retail store.
Yeah.
And let's figure out how we get the 2K radius residents around that retail store to attend a physical event. And let's build community, let's add value, and then let's sell to them.
Yeah.
So there's still a sales piece there, but it's being pulled away from the let's spend money on paid, because the more we're spending, the less results we're getting is the basic feedback that I'm getting.
Yeah.
So yes, it's getting harder to answer your question.
Yeah. I agree, and I think I'm finding this. I've found the same thing speaking to the agencies that I speak to every day. Is you're 100% right. We are dealing with, as agency owners, we are dealing with a much more sophisticated consumer who is onto us, who knows exactly when they're looking at an advert or when they're looking at a paid promotion of some kind. And they are reacting accordingly. They're going, I don't want to be sold. It's and this has been said for years: nurture, build community and all that. But I think now more than ever, it's become relevant, where it's like the rubber's meant.
Well, I'd love to share a simple case study. So I have a very long-standing client friend who runs a plus-size female clothing factory. Okay, so large woman, and she had a retail store. She's been going for 20 plus years. Retail store closed through COVID because there's no traffic, but she had a factory with people and machines, and she had already started doing quite a lot of like social marketing and paid marketing and using those tactics likely pre-COVID. Cut a long story short, she knocked she closed the store, and she changed her entire business model around from a store where you'd walk in and there'd be racks of clothes in all the sizes and all the shapes and colors that you would pick, try on and walk out with, to a very different model where she's going, I'm producing one off and I'm going to sell it to my market. They're going to place orders. I'm going to produce for them.
Yeah.
Her entire business is run on WhatsApp. Okay. She's now got thousands of ladies on WhatsApp on different groups, so broadcast lists and community groups. And she's producing content for WhatsApp status. The little thing that I never ever click on, right? And she's got groups where she doesn't want to interrupt them, but she'll go status update. And when in the 24-hour gap, those people then, if they're interested, will go look at the content on the status update. So she's not even moving them to a website. It's not an e-commerce play. It's not anything else. It's all WhatsApp. And she's taking the orders and getting payment through the platform before she's producing anything, right? Yeah. She's reduced all her spend. It's requiring lots of community management. Just a couple of thousand people on there. But the thing which blew me away about this was the fact that I've seen no one else doing it like this. Mm-hmm. And it's a small business comparatively. But the thing which blew me away was the following. December, traditionally, in this country, shuts down, right? Everyone goes on holiday. It's the European summer equivalent. It's the holidays, right? So a month shuts down. Retail in Johannesburg dies because everyone leaves here to go to the coast. And she said to me, December was her best month ever. And I was like, how is that possible? No one is here to do any shopping. She went, no, all these wealthy ladies are sitting on their holiday homes on the beach, wherever they are, bored. She's sending content, producing content via the WhatsApp groups, and they're bored lying on the beach and they're going, oh, I like that. Yeah, I'll take one of those. And they are shopping through WhatsApp live, but also having communication around like, what else you got? Can you engage with me? So there's real community management and upsell and cross-sell live on the WhatsApp channels. And for me, that's the epitome of building a community that isn't public. It's not physical, it's digital. And the fact that you're able to convert them into purchasing clients there and then.
Yeah.
For me, it's one of the smartest things I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah. Amazing. And and I suppose what she's also demonstrating right there is she owns that list. Those are mobile.
She owns it.
That it's an asset.
She has phone numbers.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an asset of amazing.
And she's building relationships, right? Like she's learning who these clients are. and she knows what they bought last time. And so because she's managing these lists, that relationship, I mean, there's pros and cons and risks to the business should something happen to her, obviously. But in theory, a community manager could learn the same stuff, could populate a CRM, could figure out what they bought last. So there's ways of digitizing that information. But what I'm saying is that she's pulled it off all the typical channels.
Yeah.
It's still digital marketing to some degree. And it's e-commerce and content.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, and it's that kind of agility, I think, that agency owners, or well, I mean, there's a business owner who's doing it, but it's that kind of agility and that kind of creative thinking in a way that I think a lot of agency owners need to apply to their clients.
Well, the agency owners are still going with spreadsheets going, here's the content plan for the next month. Where what she's doing as an example, when it's live, is that she'll show them something, she'll put it on and take a video and upload it. And when guys go, do you have any other colors? She can pull out material and go, I've got it in this color, this color, this color. So there's like a live chat response piece, which agencies could never replicate. I can't see them, without doing it for very short periods of time, being able to be that agile, nimble, and engaging with an audience like that. So I think it's a unique case, but I think there's a really good case study to that.
Yeah, that is an exceptional case study. Very interesting, hey? And she must be a good marketer in herself, if she's figured that out and she's doing that.
Well, she knows her client, right? Like she's been doing it for so long. She understands the client avatar, who that person is, so she can speak to them without a copywriter going, does this copy sound on brand? Because she knows how to speak to these people. So there's a lot of circumvention of agency there, but there's no agency that I know of that could replicate or improve on what she's done for her business.
Yeah. Very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, that's the other, that's the trend, I think, at the moment. What you're also describing over there, aside from like an interesting little marketing strategy that savvy business owners come up with, is the tools that we've now got available to us. And I think that's put a lot of digital agencies on the back foot in a way, because you've got these business owners who are maybe over the years become quite frustrated and let down by their digital agencies that have been supporting them, and have gone, well, now these tools are sort of pervasive. I have access to these tools that are online. I'm on Instagram and I see all of these tools. Hey, this is how you convert this is how you get a transcript out of a video. This is how you chop a video up into 20 little shareable TikToks. This is how you immediately create 10 social media posts in 5 minutes for you. So business owners are starting to become, to get access to these digital marketing tools that in the past they would have relied on their agencies to take care of for them.
So I have two pieces here. I think that the small business owner, and not knocking them because I'm a small business owner, right? Yeah. But a small business owner has a whole host of tools available to them, from the likes of Canva. We'll talk about AI shortly. All the channels are there. They've made it very easy to spend money with them. So I think the tools in terms of understanding the channels, producing the content, boosting and reaching audiences specifically, the measurement of that, the conversion to an e-commerce site and building e-commerce sites by yourself with like the Shopify or WooCommerce. So I think that the small business owner is going, if I have the ability or the desire to do it, so they can do it themselves. There's no question, right? But then on the flip side, and I think this will roll into the AI conversation quickly as well, is that brands are lazy. This is the biggest problem, right? Is that I often look at what brands are paying agencies to do. I'm going, why are they still paying for agencies? Why? Like, they should internalize the service, right? And often it's a combination of, it's either not their core business. So they're going, look, I'm a clothing manufacturer. I'm not a marketing business. It's not my core business. I'm going to outsource it. Or they are lazy by nature, going, I could do it. I could employ people. I don't want to. I'd rather just pay someone else to do it, right? And that's why I think a lot of agencies today still exist, is because the brands are a little bit lazy, and maybe it's cyclical or seasonal, where they internalize, they burn their fingers, they go back out to agency, they burn their fingers, they internalize, and that goes on and back and forth for a while as well. But I do think that for the bottom end of the market, in terms of like the small to medium enterprise, I think the tools are making it very, very compelling to do it yourself. because the speed and ease is there and the automation is there. So it's very difficult to go find someone who's going to charge you a premium to use the same tool that you have access to.
Yeah,
cheap to free.
Exactly. And I mean, that's kind of part that brings up the conversation that we know we're having with a lot of agencies, and we're trying to position through to our clients who are agency owners and saying, yeah, these tools are available to your clients, and there may be a bit of pressure coming from the client to say, why are you not using these tools? But the reality is, if your clients are plumbers or hairdressers or hair salons or restaurant owners, the reality is they're business owners. Their job is to run their business. Their job is not to do their marketing. And you as an agency owner need to position yourself in that role to say, hey, I've got your back on this. I don't expect you to go out and figure out the latest AI tool or Canva, or Jasper, or all of these kind of interesting little tools that are out there. I'm a digital agency owner. I've got your back. I can do this for you. So you can get back to, at the end of the day, it's a conversation of you run your business. Let me help you run your business by taking off your marketing. So justifying the existence for the agency to say, this is why I exist, so that you don't have to do
it's sure. And it's also depending on the amount of channels that a company is looking for, right? Because in theory, I could do my own writing. I could do my own design. I could probably run my own social. I don't have the skills to do Google AdWords. I certainly don't have the skills to run detailed LinkedIn campaigns. I certainly can't buy media outside of digital media, like outdoor. So like what I could possibly do is limited as well. Where an agency could say, look, you want SEO, you want backlinks, you want some sort of digital PR, you want social, paid, this, like for the price of one human, you get all these skills from us. But you can go employ one person who might be really good at one or two things, but then you're not getting the full suite. Right. So it also depends on how broad a spectrum of services that the client is looking for as to why the agency exists. But what you are seeing is that some businesses have figured out that, I'm using an example, but like AdWords is their primary sales tool. They don't need anything else. They don't need much more than a decent website and AdWords. And they might go, well, you know what? I can go do a Google search, figure out how to do this good enough, and I'll set it up and run it. Yeah. So if it's one channel, then it kind of makes sense. There's not much creative requirement. If you turn on correctly and you're a plumbing business that there's not multiple campaigns running, fair enough, just to do it yourself. Yeah. But the more complex services, the more moving pieces your business has, the agency has its place for sure.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. I think that's the conversation that agency owners need to start getting right, is have that conversation in such a way that it's positioning or reassuring the business owner that their job is not to do marketing, and they can maybe do one or two tactics on their own that may be successful, but the reality is there's a lot more to the marketing piece than just running a few tools and getting an output and a few little social media posts created. There's a much bigger
and it's a moving target, right? I mean, like I'm using an example. So now we have the obvious channels. We can name them all, right? The obvious channels for digital. But now I look at guys that are doing marketing on Reddit, marketing on Discord, WhatsApp. Like suddenly there's a whole bunch of like these peripheral, but actually very large channels, right? Like there's actually a lot of people on these channels. And if you go to most agency, go like, tell me about how you would market my product in Discord. They look at you going, what? Yeah. Like they've never thought of it. They've never played with it. But I reckon that there's an opportunity to go like set up a Discord agency on a global level. And there's probably enough work out there for you. Yeah. So like, what are agencies doing? Are they spreading themselves thin? Are they becoming niche, particular channel experts? Like there's all these kind of these questions floating around. But the brand, the business owner cannot keep up with the multiple things that you could be doing, and the fact that they keep changing, and there's new trends and new buttons and new things on there that it's very difficult for someone that's running another business to figure out what's my marketing strategy, what's relevant, what the trends are. It's impossible. Yeah, exactly.
And their job is to be plumbers, or their job is to be construction people. Their job is not to figure out that stuff. That's why the digital agency exists, is because they offer that skilled service to them to solve those problems for them, so that they don't have to do it themselves. But
100%.
It has become a much more difficult conversation for the agency owner, because of this, that plumber gets home and gets onto Instagram and sees all of these bright, shiny objects and goes, "Shit, man, that's pretty cool. Hey, that's pretty cool. I could use that for my business. Why is my digital agency not having that conversation with me? Maybe they're the wrong people for me, or maybe they're not doing the job that they should be." Which makes it tough. It's a tough conversation for that agency owner, because they've got to be really on top of it.
Yeah, and I think you're speaking about the small business owner, right? Where like a lot of my clients deal with large multinationals. At that level, there's an overarching brand CR, then there's an overarching proper marketing strategy on a global level, then localized. They know all their channels. So at that level, no one's going, "Why aren't we on this channel?" But even so, there is still opportunity. So it depends on the maturity of the company as well as to what the conversation is with the brand, with the agency. But I think that we can go back to the South African context. There are thousands and thousands of mid-sized, family-owned or independently run businesses that are engaging with agencies or a freelance or a couple of freelancers, or they're doing some themselves and some external, and no one is necessarily explaining the landscape, explaining the opportunity, and vice versa. Not vice versa, the opposite of going, "Why are you on Instagram? That isn't the right channel for your business. You should be on LinkedIn because you're a B2B business. You have no creative. What are you doing?" Where the guys like that, they don't know, right? So as opposed to trying to sell them everything, the right agency conversation is, well, what is the right one or two or combination of channels you should be on, relevant to your business, to the client you're selling to, and that's actually a better conversation versus you should be on everything, obviously.
Yeah, and that's, I think, is one of the toughest frustrations for agency owners, is dealing with uneducated clients who come in insisting that they are seen everywhere, and then having to have a conversation with that client and saying, "Mate, it doesn't really make sense for us to be on TikTok. I understand that you spend your day on TikTok watching videos and you think that it would be good for your business to be on TikTok, but it doesn't make sense. All we're going to do is burn money and burn energy over there. It's not going to get us a commercial result, which you have come to me to speak to me about. What is going to get us a commercial result is sending emails. Oh, but emails aren't sexy. Nobody replies to emails and nobody opens emails." Nonsense. That's actually not true. Email marketing is still a very powerful way of doing marketing.
Sure.
It's not the sexy thing. They can't go to their mates and say, "Hey, look, my IT business is on TikTok, and we put out these stupid little dance videos," which are not getting us a commercial result, but at least we're on the latest platform. So it's a tough conversation.
So, I mean, the businesses that I sort of like and admire, one of the reasons why I like and admire certain businesses is they figured out their sales and marketing. And it can be because they stumbled across it, or they were lucky, or they just tried one thing and it worked. But what you'll find is that the business that goes, "I know how to turn the volume up and the volume down of lead generation with the following button or two buttons." And it's not, "I'm on everything." It's, "I can do one or two things, and I know that I'll do that. It'll take me this amount of time to turn on the leads." Those are the best businesses, because they don't have the complexity of like, what's working, we should be everywhere. It's like, no, they know how to solve their lead gen problem or their sales problem. And those are the best. And they often, it's one or two channel. That's it.
Yeah.
And by channel, I'm not saying social and outdoor. I'm saying LinkedIn and outdoor, right? Like, it's very specific. They know exactly which one works.
Yeah.
And they don't need to spend everything else, because it's enough for their business.
Yeah. I agree, and I think that's exactly what's been going on in the world lately, especially with this resurgence of all these tools that have come out. Is a lot of not just agency owners but business owners have gotten really distracted with all of this bright shiny stuff that's around them, going, "I need to be there and I need to do this, and why am I not doing that?" And forgetting that actually what drives my commercial results is this particular platform. I should be spending all my time and effort over there rather than all over the place where I'm not getting the commercial outcome.
And the reality is that I'm trying to think of an analogy here, but let's talk about social media for a second, right? And I'll bring it back into the AI tools we might be talking about now. But nobody that I know of built a social platform